Yesterday we read the canto, The Destined Meeting Place, the Book of Love. It's very interesting, both in synthesis as well as here and elsewhere. Wherever Sri Aurobindo speaks of love, there's a lot of beauty and joy that he brings into it. They are three aspects of one reality. Wherever there is Ananda, there is beatitude. And same thing applies on all planes. Love and Ananda are two sides of one truth. Ananda absorbed within itself is bliss. When it leans down to earth, leans down to creation, it becomes love. So that's how it helps the evolutionary journey. Very beautiful and revealing lines. Unknowing she had neared her nameless goal, for though a dress of blind and devious chance is laid upon the work of all wise fate, our acts interpret an omniscient force that dwells in the compelling stuff of things, and nothing happens in the cosmic play but at its time and in its foreseen place. So every stage, scene, sequence of the drama has been already determined, and this raises the nuttiest of all questions that human mind has ever conjured with regard to the reality beyond. That then what is the significance of free choice? What is our role? And when Amal Kiran asked this question to Mother, and he said, Mother, I know all the philosophical answers. I want you to tell me yes or no. Is there a free choice or is there no free choice? Then Mother went into a trance and then she said, yes, there is a free choice. Then this question was asked to Sri Aurobindo. And Sri Aurobindo said that, what is our role? He said, we can give a consent or not give a consent. This is our role. So in Savitri there is a beautiful three-liner. Man is a dynamo for God's works. Nature does most in him, God the high rest. Only his soul's consent is his own. So we have to give a consent. Now that also he explains, Sri Aurobindo, for a long time, almost till 90% of the journey. We think we are giving a consent, but it's just play of nature. Nature is leading us through all kinds of experiences. We don't want, yet things happen. We want, things don't happen. Because that's how nature is preparing the soul to reach a point where it can begin to peep out of the flesh and turn towards higher truths. And it's only then and only then that the question of really consent comes. Secondly, as long as we live in the consciousness of personal responsibility, we cannot apply things selectively. That okay, it's not my responsibility, it is the divine who is doing it. It's a truth of a certain plane. But till we touch that plane, as long as we are applying ourselves, our seemingly ignorant choices in everyday life, we have to exercise it, because that's how the human consciousness evolves. We cannot absolve ourselves of responsibility. Having said that, this notion of doing something as a result of it, bad consequence, good consequence, that is of course simply a creation of the human mind, and nature allows it, uses it, because that's how human beings advance. But in reality, it doesn't hold true. It's not that there is a judge sitting there who is all the time counting our deeds, and based on the deeds he is giving us punishment or reward. That doesn't apply. It's an evolutionary journey. But Savitri is a conscious being. Though even there, Sri Aurobindo describes that she could have just moved on. She may not have seen. Suddenly she turns, a glance. She could have taken another path. And yet, on that fated day, destined day, she turns and towards that little lane where she has to meet Satyavan. And there we find the divine irony in things. As we know, and thanks to Nirodha, this aspect of Sri Aurobindo, the divine has a sense of humor. Mother at some place says that If he didn't have a sense of humor, he would not have created this fascinating world. We put things into a fixed jacket, but he has a sense of humor. For instance, giving the song of immortality on the battlefield of death, the Gita. He could have given it in a nice ashram, he could have given it to a holy man, but suddenly he picks up Arjuna and gives him the song of immortality for times to come. Similarly, love in the most unlikeliest places, a place, wilderness, where ascetics would like to withdraw away from all human contact. And there love comes and greets Savitri and fills the heart of Satyavan. We read those wonderful lines. Love in the wilderness met Savitri, came to Savitri. And so beautifully it describes that vision of that place where the mountain peaks, like the blue-throated ascetic. It's a place where ascetics should be retreating in solitude. But precisely that's a spot where love chooses to reach and draw the ascetic out of his solitude into the play of creation. And this so much reminds us of the story of Sati and Shiva. That of all the places, Sati has to go to Mount Kailash and find Shiva and fall in love with the most unimaginable person. Similarly, Savitri has to find love in somebody who has lost his kingdom and is like an outcast living in the most unlikeliest of places, and she finds him. And with that, we turn to Canto 2, last 4 or 5 lines, very beautiful lines, describing love. Several places Sri Aurobindo describes love in these magnificent terms. It's the book of love. A stranger on the sorrowful roads of time, immortal, under the yoke of death and fate, a sacrificant of the bliss and pain of the spheres. Love in the wilderness met Savitri. These are really magical lines. And more such lines will come. Canto 2, Satyavan. So every canto has a key, and here the key is, Sri Aurobindo writes in his author's note, Satyavan is the soul of man which is struggling in ignorance, struggling against fate, struggling against an array of forces. And Savitri is the divine word, the daughter of the sun who has come to save. When mother was asked, who is Satyavan? She gave 2 interesting answers. One answer she gave was, he is the supreme Lord himself. Lord becomes this. What does he become? The Jiva. And next place he says, he is the soul of the earth, the Jiva. The Lord has become the Jiva. And the Divine Mother comes to save him. Wherever there is a Jiva ready, aspiring, seeking, even if he is not seeking, the mother knows and she will reach there to pick him out. I was reading long back how Medhananda, he was in some faraway place, and one of his friend came there. It was an isolated place, and while going he left or he forgot the mother. And suddenly when he read it, he wondered, who has written it? Where is he? Who could have given birth to this? And he found out eventually without Google search in those days. And then he managed to come here. So how the divine finds us wherever we are, so we don't have to worry about it. Very often people ask this question, when we leave our body and come next life, will we be in Pondicherry? It doesn't matter, because we may be in Pondicherry but far from mother. And we may be to the other end of the earth, and if she wants, if she knows the time has come, she will definitely call us, capture us. How she will do it? I think every one of us here has their own stories. We don't have to worry about it. So Divine Mother comes to Satyavan, the soul of earth. All of us represent that, but Satyavan is the representative. All she remembered on this day of fate, the road that hazarded not the solemn depths, but turned away to flee to human homes, the wilderness with its mighty monotone, the morning like a lustrous seer above, the passion of the summits lost in heaven, the titan murmur of the endless woods, as if a wicket gate to joy were there, ringed in with voiceless hint and magic sign. So again, what is the sign that mother wants this circumstance? So when people used to ask mother, outer difficulties, are they an indication that mother does not want this? Mother said no. If you take outer difficulties as a sign, then you will be misled, sometimes even completely by the hostile forces. Because look, Savitri, searching for that one face, she has come far, far, far away. Actually, she should have turned away long back. That look, maybe I have to go in another direction. But she goes further and further. But the sign is inside. She reaches that point, she begins to feel a magic joy in everything. And that inner sign is the real indication. So Savitri gets that voiceless hint and magic sign right in that atmosphere. Upon the margin of an unknown world reclined the curve of a sun-held recess. Groves with strange flowers like eyes of gazing nymphs peered from their secrecy into open space. Really, every time one reads Sri Aurobindo describing physical nature, actually one sees physical nature come much more close and vividly than if one were to actually walk into that space. This is the beauty of, as Sri Aurobindo says, the seers were creators. They created forms which came close to us. And if you really look at it as simply as artistry of literature, I'm sure with all our technological advancement, it's not possible to conjure this scene on a television screen. The way Sri Aurobindo conjures it for us. Look at these lines. Upon the margin of an unknown world, reclined the curve of a sun-held recess. So he's showing us as if, there is a little entry point where a little bit of sunlight is touching. Grooves with strange flowers like eyes of gazing nymphs peered from their secrecy into open space. One sees a little bit of flowers here and there, and he describes them like eyes of gazing nymphs. They're so beautiful, they evoke that sense of charm within oneself. Boughs whispering to a constancy of light. Sheltered a dim and screened felicity. Now, in a TV screen, we cannot bring the touch of that psychological element. And this is what perhaps is missing when we, in olden times, when there were not so many illustrations. So one read the Mahabharata or Srimad Bhagavat. So it inspired an image in the mind, say an image of Krishna, of Arjuna. And it was amazing because it was an image which the poet built into your mind. But now if you think of Krishna, we think of Nitish Bharadwaj. Now this is not a good thing to happen. Or somebody else, Sarvadaman Bhattacharya. This is another Krishna serial. Because it limits the image. It only gives a form. There is so much emphasis on the form. But the totality is lost. The joy, the ananda, you have to supplement it from inside. But look at when the master poet creates it for us, it's something so beautiful. And slowly a supine, inconstant breeze ran like a fleeting sigh of happiness, simultaneously at both the levels. Sri Aurobindo is revealing it to us. Over slumberous grasses, pranged with green and gold. Someone only who has seen God in creation can write these lines and lend us those eyes to see it. He makes us feel, in a good sense, that we are really blind. Because we see and do not see. Hidden in the forest's bosom of loneliness, amid the leaves, the inmate voices called, sweet like desires, enamored and unseen, cry answering to low, insistent cry. Look at these lines. hidden in the forest bosom of loneliness. So it is lonely, but still there are inmates there which are unseen. Hidden in the forest, amid the leaves, the inmate voices called, sweet like desires, enamored and unseen. These were voices one couldn't hear with the ordinary ear, and one could not see. And yet there is something which calls. This is an experience actually. Sometimes one can have, I'm sure many of us would have had it. But I remember seeing the mountains when they are desolate. And you look at mountains first day, second day, when you go there, it's called mountain sickness. But there is a sense of the mountain calling you. They are very haunting. But haunting in a, not a horror way, but something which attracts you that you go there. Because they call, but it's not through any voice, there is no murmur, no sound, and yet there is a sense of something calling you. So that mood is captured here. But of course, like desires, enamored and unseen, they come, they begin to touch us without our knowledge. Cry answering to low, insistent cry. Something is constantly trying to call us. That's how desire operates. Like when we go to a market, no shopkeeper, at least on MG Road, will call us, or what is that, Nehru Street, sorry, will call us, come, come, come. But there is something which calls, low insistent call. And suddenly we feel, let's go into that shop, let's buy it. Of course, depending on each one's Shraddha, somebody may enter into a samosa shop, somebody may enter into a cloth shop. But it's a low insistent cry to which we suddenly answer with a cry of desire. It's an occult commerce which we don't understand. Behind slept emerald, dumb remotenesses, haunt of a nature, passionate, veiled, denied. It paints the picture of a virgin forest. Nobody has gone there, but it's full of its own joy, which is holding within itself, passionate, veiled, denied, to all but her own vision, lost and wild. So nature knew what she has created, but to everybody else, oh, this space, lone space, God-forsaken place, wild. But nature had kept those spots for some special beings. Earth, in this beautiful refuge, free from cares, murmured to the soul a song of strength and peace. So there was within those spaces something it had kept guarded for those who will dare to reach there. But most would not, they would discard it as lost and wild place. Only one sign was there of a human tread, a single path, short, thin and arrow-like, into this bosom of vast and secret life, pierced its enormous dream of solitude. So there was one little Pagdandi, a human trail, which gave a feeling that there is probably some human beings living there. Here first she met on the uncertain earth. Every line of Sri Aurobindo is so wonderful. If there is one thing certain on this earth, is its uncertainty. And we want certainty, and there is no certainty. This is the joy. It's like a puzzle that we are given to solve. And certainty can come only with bringing out the fullness of the divine truth into the play. So uncertainty constantly stalks. The one for whom her heart had come so far. So here first she met, and now Sri Aurobindo describes Satyavan. The beauty of this description is that, of course, the soul of earth, but has taken a representative human form. Now, Sri Aurobindo is describing at once an image which can apply to both. He is describing a human image of a human being. Satyavan is a human being and he is a real conscious being. Sri Aurobindo has said that also. It is not just a symbol. It is a symbol as well as a truth. They are conscious forces which take human shape. So now the poet is describing both these together, and that's where the mastery of the master of masters lies. This kind of a construction is very rare, and only in, as I said, in some literature, spiritual literature, we find it. So look at these lines, how Satyavan is introduced to us. As might a soul on nature's background limbed stand out for a moment in a house of dream, created by the ardent breath of life, so he appeared against the forest verge. Inset twixt green relief and golden ray. So simultaneously this could apply to the soul of earth, peering out of earth nature against a background of green and golden ray. And he says in so many words, soul, which is lined by a certain background, suddenly she sees. But at the same time, it applies to the human Satyavan, as if a weapon of the living light, erect and lofty like a spear of God. Same thing we find when Sri Aurobindo describes Savitri in Book 1, Canto 2. Simultaneously it applies at both the levels. So instead of saying he was standing erect, he had such a nice figure and form, no. He was erect. Erect like what? Like a weapon of God, of living light. Erect and lofty like a spear of God. His figure led the splendor of the morn. Noble and clear as the broad, peaceful heavens. A tablet of young wisdom was his brow. So looking at his forehead, there was the sense of wisdom, full of youth, not wisdom that had grown stale, but wisdom which was young, full of expectation for great, unknown, infinite things. Freedom's imperious beauty curved his limbs. There was a natural ease, freedom's imperious beauty, not something which was manufactured artificially. It was not somebody who was trained in gym to grow big muscles. He was not like that. It was not an artificial product, but something which had grown in nature and grown to be beautiful and magnificent. And then this very interesting line, the joy of life was on his open face. In evening talks, Sri Aurobindo was asked, what is required, conditions required for a human being to do this yoga? So Sri Aurobindo has described different things at different places. One place he says, a certain, I won't know the exact French pronunciation, somebody should correct me, joie de vivre, joy of life. He said a certain amount of joy and life is necessary. Now this is very interesting. This yoga is not for those who are too serious and grave. It is for those who have a certain joy of life. This joy of life is the one which is like a raw material which can be transmuted. But if this joy, the basic material is missing, how to transmute? There must be that joy of life to be able to take one through this yoga. And of course, a sense of humor. And as one proceeds, one realizes one has to have more and more sense of humor, because without that, journey becomes difficult. The joy of life was on his open face. His look was a white daybreak of the gods. His head was a youthful rishi's touched with light. His body was a lover's and a king's. Description which would scandalize spiritual thought. How Sri Aurobindo is describing his figure. Similarly, when he describes the mother, parable of dawn, that's how he describes. Her heart was a hushed, veiled sanctuary where everybody could take refuge. So this description of the inner being, the inner personality, and where figure and form becomes only kind of an outline to express that which is within, rather than the other way around. Our vision sees the outer and interprets the inner, whereas the Lord sees the inner and the outer is only as a background. So this is the beauty of his description. In the magnificent dawning of his force, so he is a young man in whom the force is beginning to come out, emerge. Built like a moving statue of delight. He illumined the border of the forest page. Out of the ignorant, eager toil of the years, abandoning man's loud drama, he had come, led by the wisdom of an adverse fate. What magnificent line. He had abandoned the loud drama in cities and in big places. He was not holding a big post in some government or NGO or corporate sector. He was not having a salary in 5 or 6 figures. That's a loud drama. Television, his name was not flashing on the television. Nobody till then had known there is a creature called Satyavan. And how he had reached there? Led by an adverse fate. This is several places shown in Indian thought. Meera, led by an adverse fate to discover Krishna, the all-pervasive reality in creation. Otherwise, Krishna was for her an idol and a living image in her heart. Adverse fate was that a husband abandons her. Similarly, adverse fate of Vibhishna, kicked out of Lanka. What a grace that he falls at the feet of Rama. So these are adverse fates which turn out to be so beautiful. And here, Satyavan has been led by an adverse fate. The fate, of course, he has lost his kingdom. His father was a king, Dumatsena. He has lost the kingdom, lost his sight, and they have been outcast. So they have found refuge in this place. So it's an adverse fate seemingly, but look at the irony, divine irony. He is led by the wisdom of an adverse fate to meet the ancient mother in her groves. It's like he has already paid the tax of night. And so the mother, now he is ready for that light, for that delight, for the coming of the mother. So that adverse fate has led him to this place. In her divine communion, he had grown a foster child of beauty and solitude. Who is the teacher? Teacher is not just in schools. It's an old mental concept. We want no education. And no wonder the mother, when she was asked to name one of the schools in Auroville, she named it the last school. These are mentalized schools. But there is another school, the school of nature. Now this concept is coming up. Universal learning. Shvetketu realized the Brahman in the forest. That's how his guru sent him. Go to forest with 100 lean and thin cows. Come back when they are 400 and healthy. And he had asked for Brahmagyana. Somebody else would have said, what a job. Like somebody comes to ashram to realize the divine. And he believes that, today I'll be instructed into meditation. And told that every day, 4 hours you meditate. Dining room is there for your food. Don't go here and there. Sit and you will realize. Maybe like that, just my own conjecture. Rishabh Chandji comes and he is given the task, work in the furniture department. Like Nirodha was given, timber go down. And Sri Aurobindo said, if you leave it, it will go to the devil. Because people were saying, you are a doctor, what is it you are doing in the timber go down? And similarly, Rishabh Chandji in furniture department, anyways, he was full of love and he wrote a nice letter to mother that, to Sri Aurobindo, whatever work I am given, I'll do it in a dedicated way. Very nice, beautiful letter. And then before he can send it, he gets an assignment. A court is coming, kill the bedbugs in that. Is this the way to realize the divine? Killing bedbugs in a court, doing violent things. And that too, a Jain, so he can't accept it. So he keeps that letter, sends another letter to mother, to Sri Aurobindo. I think mother does not know that I am a Jain. I am not supposed to kill, etc., etc. And Sri Aurobindo writes back one line, whatever work mother has given you is meant for your progress. That seals the fate. This was the way, even when we look at the ancient yoga ashrams, this was the way. It was not like everybody was given mixture of, do this, don't do this, prescription. No, it was a very natural growth. And same thing we see in this ashram, natural growth. It's not that mother is telling, do this, don't do this. There are some very general outlines, and when mother was asked for rules, she says, I hate to put rules. It's there, inner words. But since people are insisting, so she is writing a few. Because true evolution has to take place in freedom. So he has grown in nature, and those who are ready will grow and learn, because the master is everywhere, the guru is everywhere, the Jagat Guru, the divine is everywhere. So he has been fostered and nurtured. He has also become wise without going to school, perhaps more wise. Because as G.B. Shaw says, true education begins when whatever we have learnt is forgotten. Then we really begin to learn. And specialization is dangerous. Yesterday we were talking about, because we cannot but think in groups. It's in our medical field well known. You send a patient to a surgeon. The surgeon will only think in terms of surgery. It's a well known thing. You send it to a physician, he will think in terms of physical diseases. And all of us have witnessed, I have seen it, people with amoebic colitis being operated for appendicitis. So it used to be very common at one point of time, without really bad will, genuine goodwill, because the first thought that would come to a surgeon flash is appendicitis, when there is an abdominal pain. You go to a physician, amoebic colitis. And very similar pictures, simply because the mind gets fixed into a groove. So specialization has a big demerit. It takes away the plasticity and suppleness. So that's what we read yesterday. Mother, when she said, I am not an expert at anything, that of course is divine humility. The Lord is telling her that is very good. And mother and the Lord Samvad, mother is thinking he is just trying to encourage me as a child. But later on she discovers it gives a suppleness. So he has learned, those who are born to grow wise will grow anywhere. A fostered child of beauty and solitude. Higher to the centuries of the lonely wise. Not all wise men are known, and not all well-known men are wise. Just because everybody puts a title of Sant, Pujya, Param Pujya, 108 bar, it doesn't necessarily mean there is wisdom. There may be something, but doesn't mean that one has Brahma Jnana. Whereas, just because one is not known, doesn't mean that one does not know. One may be in a forest, there is a whole lineage of beings who have retired from the world, and yet they have acted. Yesterday we read, day before yesterday, their indifference helped the world. Sri Aurobindo says that, how do you know that a lonely ascetic sitting in the mountain tops is not creating revolutions? This is an actual truth of French Revolution. It is said that an ascetic in India dreamed of freedom, equality and brotherhood, and in France somebody received it, and there was this mantra, and now that mantra has contaminated the whole earth. Freedom, equality and brotherhood is the mantra which is going to grow more and more. Everybody wants this. So somebody dreamed of it in the solitude, nobody knows his name. So here the lonely wise, what beautiful expression. A brother of the sunshine and the sky, a wanderer communing with depth and marge, a Veda knower of the unwritten book. So, Veda is not just what is available in Gita Press, Gorakhpur and whatever places. That's not the original version. The original Veda is written in the heart of every thinking and living creature. This is Sri Aurobindo's, the eternal Veda is secret within the heart of every thinking and living creature. And whom does it disclose? It discloses itself to those whose hearts are enamored of the divine, whose minds are caught up by the eternal. So when we seek, the Veda begins to disclose. It's written in matter, it's written in trees, it's written in animal, it's written in birds, it's written in dust, it's written in sky, it's written in the sun, it's written, woven in the stars. But we just need to have the eye and the urge, and then it will disclose itself. The stars will, as Sri Aurobindo says in one of his poems, seer deep-hearted. White star scripts of the God. It's written somewhere, but we don't see it. Born of the presses of light. When we distill light, whatever knowledge, wherever we start with, we distill, press it, go deeper into it, commune with the depths, then the Veda begins to reveal itself. And Veda is infinite because God is infinite. Knowledge is infinite. So wherever we feel that one knows, one does not know. But when one knows it not, then one knows it. In the sense, when one knows that whatever one may have known, there is the infinite which can reveal itself, then one really knows, one is ready for that knowledge. So Satyavan is a Veda knower, and so well it applies to the psychic being, to the soul in man. See, all this description also applies to the soul. The soul is the Veda knower of the unwritten book. It doesn't need to read a book. Again, I am reminded of this little story of Madhusudan Reddy ji, who was some villager came to him asking him to explain the life divine. And he looking at his Veshbhusha, his dress, appearance, wondered that, he probably doesn't even understand English. Why life divine? So he asked him, why you have come and what is the background? He said, I don't know. I was just passing a shop and I saw a lot of blue light coming out of this book. And when I opened, all the lines are full of blue light. And I don't know what is there inside. So I asked people and they have sent me to you. He said, I can't say more to you now. We have that story even about Shankaracharya that, when he was going and he saw someone looking at the Gita and tears flowing down. And he asked Shankaracharya, please tell me, sir, what is in it? He says, first you tell me why you are crying. I don't know. Every page I turn, I see this beautiful being sitting on the chariot. And something is telling another human being. I can't understand what he is saying. But page after page I see this image. But I don't understand. So he says, I don't need to tell you. So he is the Veda knower. The soul knows the unwritten book, pursuing the mystic scripture of her forms. So every time people say Sri Aurobindo is difficult, this is difficult, that is difficult. The difficulty is inside. Nothing is difficult. And if we cannot reach Sri Aurobindo for some reason, doesn't matter. This knows. And if we turn to this, go deep, pray to Mother. Mother, you tell me. I don't understand. She will reveal everything. Because how she came to Satyavan, so she would come to all of us. And comes to all of us. He had caught her hierophant significance. The significance of dumb things. Her sphered, immense imaginations learned, taught by sublimities of stream and wood. Seeing the river flow, he had understood that we should flow in life, not cling to things, not hold on to things. We should allow everything to flow past. We should remember our origin from where we came, from the mountains. We should remember we have to go to the sea. Looking at the river, one can understand. It's the logic of the river. Looking at the mountain, one can muse on the ascetics who withdraw from life into the solitude of silences, their aspiration mounting to the sky. But are they hard and harsh? No. In their heart is the sweetest stream. Those who have gone to the mountains know this, that some of the sweetest streams, purest streams one gets, they are flowing into the mountains. And where does it come from? Some of course are flowing from above, but some of them are springing from the heart of the mountain. Like love coming out of these ascetics. How can ascetics love? But we are told ascetics carry within them, their heart, the purest form of love. So looking at the stream and the woods, Satyavan has learned so much. And voices of the sun and star and flame. So when one looks at the fire at night, one understands that's how one must keep a vigil when there is darkness. When one looks at the sun, one understands there is a light like that to which nothing is hidden. One may not call it supermind, but one knows there is a light to whose eyes nothing is hidden. And when that light dawns, darkness vanishes. Till then, aspiration and the fire leads the march. And voices of the sun and star and flame, and chant of the magic singers on the boughs. How beautiful. And the dumb teaching of four-footed things. Looking at a lion, the quiet power. Looking at a bird, the spirit of soaring into the infinite. That's why birds are symbol of the soul. If one sees a bird or a swan or a duck, they're all symbols of the soul. Looking at a peacock, he eats the snakes. He destroys hostile forces. That's why with him is the victorious power. It's a symbol of victory. And that's why Kartikeya has that as the Vahan. That can carry at the center. That's why Krishna puts the peacock feather on his head. So when we look at creation, it reveals itself. Everything. Helping with confident steps her slow great hands, he leaned to her influence like a flower to rain, and like the flower and tree in natural growth, widened with the touches of her shaping hours. I'm reminded of a nice story. Somebody recalled this, that there was a big debate going on, a seminar on supermind and a new creation and evolution and transformation, etc., etc. And the wise men were talking and the wiser men were sleeping. No, there is a line in Savitri: God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep. So, my interpretation is wise men talk and the wiser ones sleep. Because there is no substance in it. So, and this, finally it was over, no conclusion whether there will be transformation, new creation, scientists, everybody debating. So, after the talk was over, as they were walking out, then one person was the last one to walk out. Why? Not because he had come for the talk, he was the watchman. So he had to close the door. So at the end he tells one of the speakers, I don't know why you people were debating about what all this, whether man, something will come out not. Of course it will happen. So he was stunned. He said, how you have reached this conclusion? Have you read some book? No. I see nearby in that there is a pool where there is all muck and mire and lotus blooms there. So if lotus can bloom in mud and mire, why can't a great being, divine being come out of man? What is the problem? This I see every day happening. Now this is really a revelation. It doesn't come by reading a book. Reading a book one may debate endlessly. Doubt and shift between, seesaw between trust and doubt, faith and doubt. But here is somebody who has learned from nature, leaning on it like rain. How beautiful these lines are. Like a flower to rain. And like the flower and tree, a natural growth. What is this natural growth? From within outward. That's how things must grow, not from outside. That's why Sri Aurobindo and the mother did not believe in imposing things from outside. Thus shalt thou do, thus shalt thou not do. Because there is not a natural growth. People will become hypocrites, artificial. They will do things to show. Outwardly they will wear the robe of a sannyasi and do things, but inwardly they will nurture all the darknesses and behave in the most horrible manner. So that he doesn't want. He wants a genuine growth. And that's what has happened here. And like the flower and tree, a natural growth, widened with the touches of a shaping hours. Just last few lines, then we will stop, take a break. The mastery free natures have was his. Oh, beautiful line. Why Sri Aurobindo speaks so much of freedom? And he was asked, sir, do you mean freedom means, what kind of freedom? Freedom means freedom to make errors. He says, yes, otherwise it is not a freedom. Freedom even to make mistakes and learn. Because then it is authentic. The mastery free natures have was his. And their ascent to joy and spacious calm, one with the single spirit inhabiting all, he laid experience at the Godhead's feet. So every time he went to night, whatever he had gathered, he put it down at the Godhead's feet, the spirit inhabiting nature, and went to sleep. His mind was open to her infinite mind, because thank God he had not done a BA or MA. So his mind was not stuck in grooves. This can happen, this cannot happen. So his mind was open to infinite mind. So this is such an advantage of not studying too much and becoming a fool. His acts were rhythmic with her primal force. He had subdued his mortal thought to hers. That day, he had turned from his accustomed paths for one who, knowing every moment's load, can move in all our studied or careless steps, had laid the spell of destiny on his feet and drawn him to the forest's flowering verge. We will stop here for 10 minutes and then come back.